Hey everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and we think you should read when, Brad?
Don't delay, people. Read them right now.
That's right. That's right. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing so great. Quick side note, do you ever have moments where you're just kind of patting yourself on the back? You strike me as so humble and unassuming, but I'm having one of those moments. I don't know if you can relate.
No, I do all the time because no one else will. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah, I do that too. But so I'm in. I have this tripod. I always have, I use that term very loosely, but it's an ice box and a coffee maker balanced next to a hotel lamp. And I think I did a pretty good job. I just can't. I got to be careful not to bump this thing, or I will not be having coffee tomorrow.
I love it. Then that would be a tragedy. Your lighting looks so professional, like you are in a movie studio right now. I love it.
Thank you. I won't be able to see after this show. I'll just be blinded because I'm literally staring at a very intense. See, Jen, I'm very safety and germ
Hmm.
conscious. Before I was trying to put a diffuser on the lamp, like a sheet of paper,
Yeah.
aka
Yeah.
diffuser, but I didn't want to burn the place down, and I couldn't find a way to. It's a funky lamp, so it's like staring at a spotlight. But maybe it's
That
like a book spotlight during the show. I can. Well, I just gave away my book, but I can like mess
preview.
with special
I
effects.
love it. Well, I'll tell you, in my experience, burning the place down is a surefire way not to get invited back. So I think we'll want to avoid that. But since you've already given us a sneak preview of your book, why don't you go first this week?
All right. So I read books for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes, honestly, I want to escape. I want to get to go into a different land and meet different characters. Sometimes I want to learn. Sometimes I don't know why I'm reading other than just kind of a passion, but then I find out why I'm reading as I read, if that makes sense. Just different
Sure.
things happen. So the book the book that I chose and I want to share with everyone, I initially selected it because I was kind of binging on World War II books. If you've heard me talk about that recently,
Hmm.
and I do other book binges. It's not just a World War II thing, but it wouldn't be a book I would usually gravitate to because it's a heavy topic, and a lot of times I want to be uplifted. So
Sure.
why would I choose a book that feels so heavy? But I'm so glad I did, and I almost finished it on the airplane. By the way, Jen, I feel like I could reach across the border of Idaho and
I
like shake
know.
your hand. So I feel close to you, even though
I
we're
know.
still a state away. But I'm almost done with this, so it pains me. Like I can't wait to hang up and read the final pages. But at least I won't give away the ending. It's a story during World War II. There's a young girl, and I do mean young, like 12 years old. It's the author smack dab starts where she's separated from her sister, and it's a horrific
Mm.
thing, that Nazi Germany perpetuated. And it takes you through the different, work camps that she was enslaved in, and just how brutally horrible those were, but yet how they found hope in those moments in just
Mm.
ways that we and I take for granted every single day, just from bedding and having clothes and singing songs. It was just I feel like I'm in that's not how I want to say that. It's a very powerful empathy building thing that has helped me try to be more alert, like in a learning sense, like to make sure that people are never dehumanized when I can help it, and to stand up for all the atrocities. And the part of the book I'm in now, this is called Making Bombs for
Oh
Hitler
yeah.
by Marsha Skrypuch. Sorry, probably
Hmm.
didn't say that right. I don't know if Lita or Lida has reunited with her sister. I'll find that out later, and I'll never tell you. You'll have to read the book to find out. But I recommend this one because it's powerful.
Yes.
It gives aspects from World War II and the experience of Ukrainians. That Lida is a Ukrainian. Like everywhere she checks in, they won't even acknowledge Ukraine as a country. And then they have separate soup bowls. If you're from Germany, you get really great soup. If you're from Poland, you get this. If you're from Russia, because they won't acknowledge the Ukraine, you get separate ladles, separate soup, and sometimes it's poisoned, and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
water with turnips in, and just, like my book talk. This is like one of the book talks where you can't do a book justice. It's just a really
Sure.
powerful, experiential read that, like, to be a better human, a more informed human. I'm just glad that I'm reading it.
Yeah, those books about World War II and specifically about the Holocaust can be a heavy lift emotionally. We know, just if we have any knowledge of history whatsoever, that there's going to be pain, going into it, that you're going to be devastated. But books that are able to find a little bit of hope and um, uh, understanding of the human spirit, and that in that moment, I think, are really powerful reads. So that's wonderful.
You said that really well, because that's exactly what keeps me reading. There's these glimmers of hope that the author identifies and that Lita, the main character, identifies. And then tragically, a lot of them are pulled away and they have to look for new ones. Someone might
Mm-hmm.
pass away or something might happen. A good situation might go bad. So that's another reason why I can't even guarantee that the ending of this book, that things fall into place at all. I mean, the author just feels like she's really keeping it real. So I don't know how it'll end, but it's I don't know, it's just been a really cool journey. So I recommend that you read Making Bombs for Hitler right now. It's just really
Yay.
interesting experience, perspective
It
builder.
it reminds me a little bit of a book that came out a couple of years ago now. The author's name is escaping me, but that I feel like you might enjoy, Brad. It's called What the Night Sings. And my Rutgers students who take young adult literature with me, read it last year. And one of the things that they said overwhelmingly is that it was so different from a lot of the other Holocaust literature that they'd read, because it starts when um, the characters are being liberated from the camp, and it
Hmm.
really is about how they recover after those experiences. And you take away how the human spirit is uncrushable, despite all of the horror that's in the world, that ultimately together, if we come together, we can survive almost anything. So but that sounds like those two books are similar in that way, in that they just have a hopeful message ultimately.
Yeah, yeah. The interesting thing is, so the title itself, Making Bombs for Hitler, you probably
Mhm.
can, get a pretty good idea of what you think the book will be about. But the Marsha did not get to that part until at least halfway through, if not more, to the point where I
Yeah.
found myself wondering, like, who's going to be making bombs, right? Like, which character and how is this going to go? So part of
Yeah.
me, even in my mind, was toying, like, would a different title, I don't know, would it keep it more intriguing? And I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyway, the things readers do, or the things writers do as they're reading, right?
Exactly. It really and it's just another way, though, that I find myself really being reminded of what a mysterious and a wonderful craft writing really is. The work that goes into it, and the way people think of these stories and how to tell them, is pretty amazing. So
So what
well,
do you got for us?
what's that?
What do you got for us?
Well, I'm going to really switch gears we're going to take a real pivot, a hard left with this book talk. But it's interesting. You talked about all the different reasons that you read, and I've sort of developed in the last couple of years in doing this show with you a new reason for reading, or at least a new thing that makes me that I look for in books. Now, as I'm reading some books, I start putting them in the category of potentially Bradsky winning books that I think Brad Gustafson would absolutely love, and want to put on his coveted list of those that have won the Bradsky, right?
Nice.
And this week, I feel like this book has Brad Gustafson written all over it. And I don't know if you've read it or not. It's Nick Stone's Clean Getaway. And I want you to look at this cover for just a second. Okay. So you've got the main character, whose name is William, but he goes by Scoob. on the front. And then down here at the bottom, you can see there's like this Winnebago. And I don't know if you can see the lady in the window, but that's his grandmother. Okay.
For a second, I
And
couldn't tell if that was Marcus Lemonis trying to make a Camping World getaway there.
right. But I also want you to notice the book that he's holding in his hand. We can't see the title, but that book is important, and I'm going to explain that in just a second. I want to start out, though, by saying this is a book that it's in a format that I don't see a lot of, but that I really love. It's an illustrated novel. It's not a graphic novel. It's a novel, but there are illustrations interspersed at really important moments in the book. And I think the illustrations are so good, but one of the illustrations that it has in it consistently that I just love is that at the beginning of not every chapter, but every section, there will be an illustration that tells you about a state. Like this one, for example, is Alabama, the Yellowhammer State. And in it, there's a map of the state. There's a fun fact about it, the like state flower, etc. And then when the chapter, you can see the chapter heading on the next page, it starts with a route, like a highway name, right? And so every section of the book is a new state, and then every chapter is a route within that state. And so that helps you. I mean, this is a road trip book, right? Which in my mind, I'm like, oh, Brad likes him some road trip books. Like I'm thinking about Coyote Sunrise and how much he loves that book, right? Okay. And right. So then this particular road trip, this is an unusual road trip because it starts off in Atlanta, Georgia, where Scoob is at home. He was supposed to have gone on a trip with his dad for spring break, but instead he's at home being punished because he's gotten in some trouble at school for fighting and cheating. And there's some context to both those events, but dad is not interested in why it happened. He's just interested in that it happened. And so the punishment is that their spring break has been canceled. Well, when dad's at work one day, grandma shows up in the Winnebago and says, hey, I've sold my house. I bought this Winnebago. Let's go on a trip. And Scoob doesn't think twice. He grabs his bag, which was already packed for spring break, and they get in the Winnebago and they start heading south. They are headed on a journey all the way to Juarez, Mexico from Atlanta. And this trip is unique in many ways. The first is we learn right away that grandma is retracing the steps of a trip she took when she first was married to Scoob's grandpa, someone who died before Scoob was born and that he never knew. And I don't know if you can tell on the cover, but you can see Scoob is black. His grandma is white. And so in retracing the journey, they're using a book that really existed back in the day called the Green Book, which was a traveler's guide for people of color to know where they could stay and not be harassed and be safe and be welcome. And Scoob's grandparents used this book, but found along the way that because they were an interracial couple, even though they were married, that some of the places in the book didn't welcome them. So that's the first thing, is we're going on this journey and we're stopping, and all along the way, Scoob is learning a whole lot about the civil rights movement and the history of America. But the trip sort of takes a turn for the strange, because as a reader, we don't know some things that Scoob doesn't know. Like, for example, why grandma has suddenly sold her house and wants to go on this trip, why that's so important. Why grandma won't answer the phone when Scoob's dad calls, and why she eventually tosses her phone in a trash can, and why she's doing things like changing the license plates on her Winnebago at night in secret, dressed in camo when they're at the campgrounds. So we have this crazy mystery, but I want to emphasize that in addition to the mystery, the civil rights history that we learn, this book is so funny. And kids, I think in 4th, 5th, all the way through 7th grade are going to love it. It's called Clean Getaway, and it's by Nick Stone.
Fantastic. I love the teaser there, the mid book talk hook.
It is. It's got Bradsky written all over it. I'm telling you, you got to bump it up your pile when you're done with binging World War II. You got to hit this one. It's got your name on it, Brad. I swear.
I am. I promise. I promise. I'm done for a little bit. I still want to read. I have a couple others that you highly recommended. Wink is one that from Read This Now that you shared, and then the Dragon one that you shared recently.
The Dragonflies.
Yep. And then there was another one you alluded to I'm really curious about, and maybe it's the Dragon one, but where the book starts with a calamity and then kind of backtracks a teeny bit. You said the author is really gifted at starting with just putting right in the middle of action where somebody woke up to something crazy. Do you remember that?
I don't. I have to think
about it. I'll check with you later. You'll think of it. I'll check with you on that one. So those are my three.
This is a perfect segue, Brad, because if I want to go back and look at the books I recommended.
It's almost like we planned that, right? No, see, you're always making this so professional. Thank you, Jen. Go to bit.ly/read_this_now, and you'll see a vast compendium of book talk videos and a list of titles, picture books, novels with pictures, and everything in between.
Yay! I love it, and I love the word compendium. So that was like a $3 word. I love it. Thank you, my friend, and thank you to our 3 viewers. We appreciate it. Happy reading, everyone.
Take care, everyone.